This chicken is healthy, right? I mean, it's organic, free-ranged, and all natural. This is some of the best chicken you can buy in America. But why is it banned in the EU? And why does this tiny print say it may contain up to 8% retained water? The truth is that most chickens sold in the USA, even organic chickens, are soaked in a chemical bath along with thousands of other birds. This bath is supposed to kill dangerous bacteria from the poop that remains on some chickens. But as one microbiologist said, the birds are no cleaner than if they had been dipped in a toilet. This dirty water soaks into the meat and increases its weight, cheating customers out of billions of dollars. But it gets worse. Every year, about 250,000 Americans are infected with the dangerous Salmonella bacteria after eating contaminated chicken products. When you eat it, you get food poisoning and feel terrible for several days, and it could even spread to your blood or brain and cause death. So where does Salmonella come from? From the back end of animals. So if your chicken is contaminated with Salmonella, that means you're eating poo. And guess what? The US Department of Agriculture, the government agency that's in charge of making sure farm products are safe, actually allows up to 9.8% of the whole chickens they inspect to be contaminated with Salmonella. And as much as 25% of ground chicken coming out of a factory can be contaminated before the government says it's too much. Consumer Reports did their own testing on chicken bought from stores and found 31% of the packages had Salmonella. That's a lot of poo people are eating all the time. But hey, if you cook it well, the Salmonella dies and perhaps it adds some flavor. The problem starts before the chicken even gets to the factory. You see, these birds spend almost their entire lives surrounded by their own excrement. Then they are shipped off to a factory where robots do a lot of the dirty work of butchering, cleaning, and processing countless chickens every day. As chickens' intestines are removed, things can get messy, and the machines that are supposed to clean the carcasses don't always clean up every bit of the mess. The government used to require inspectors to cut off visible contamination they found on chickens. But in 1978, the chicken industry convinced the USDA to allow chicken to be washed with chlorine to speed up the process. Today, most factories dunk chickens in a bath of vinegar and hydrogen peroxide or chlorine to kill bacteria that remains on the birds. Of course, this giant shared bath spreads contamination from one chicken to another, and inspectors still find live Salmonella bacteria at the end of the processing line. But as long as it isn't past the allowable limits, the meat gets shipped to a store near you. Yum. This is why chicken from the US isn't allowed to be sold in the EU or UK. They say that killing bacteria with chemicals just covers up hygiene problems in the processing plants. The only way to know for sure that your chicken isn't full of dirty bath water is to look for the words air-chilled on the label. But air-chilled chicken can still be contaminated with dangerous bacteria. And these bacteria are getting more dangerous all the time because they are developing resistance to the drugs used to treat them. Back in the 1950s, farmers began adding antibiotics to chicken feed. The antibiotics caused chickens to grow just as big with less food, saving farmers a lot of money. But the constant overuse of drugs has led to many new strains of bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. So if you end up in the hospital with a foodborne illness, doctors may not be able to treat it. In 2017, the US government stopped allowing antibiotics useful for human medicine to be used to increase the weight of chickens. But excessive use of antibiotics is still an issue. And antibiotic-resistant bacteria are only part of the problem. Chickens that are raised in a natural environment normally would eat a balanced diet of insects, seeds, and plants. But factory farm chickens are fed an unnatural diet of corn and soybeans, sprayed with lots of chemicals. In 1996, genetically modified corn and soybeans were approved for use in the USA, and most chicken farmers immediately switched to GMO feed. If any of this concerns you, you'll be glad to know that organic chickens can't be fed any GMO products or antibiotics. But just because something is labeled organic doesn't mean it's healthy. Most organic chickens spend their lives in huge barns often packed with 30,000 or more birds. Organic and free-range chickens are supposed to have year-round access to the outdoors, but many farmers simply provide openings to small concrete porches, not the green pastures you imagine. In 2029, new regulations will come into effect that will make sure that organic chickens actually have access to larger natural spaces with dirt and plants. Some small farmers actually raise free-range chickens in a natural environment. But I'm afraid I have more bad news, because even most small farmers raise a breed of chicken that is anything but natural, the Cornish Rock Cross. These meat birds have been bred to grow as big as possible, as fast as possible. 100 years ago, a 4-month-old chicken only weighed about 2.5 pounds. Today, chickens can grow over 10 pounds in less than 2 months while eating less food. If you compare one of these chickens to a human, it would be like an 8-year-old child that weighed 480 pounds. You can only imagine the suffering that is caused by such unnatural growth. In fact, it's common for hundreds of birds in every barn to suddenly fall over dead due to heart problems. Others grow so big they can't even stand up. The companies that breed these chickens track every ounce of growth and are constantly developing bigger and bigger chickens every year. These monstrous chickens make these companies rich. But what about you? Do you really want to eat an obese chicken with heart disease? Some farmers refuse to grow these unnatural giants. Instead, they raise chickens that grow at a more natural pace and that can actually live a normal life. Many people say these slower growing breeds taste a lot better, but they are also more expensive because they eat more food and take more time to mature. But where can you even find these chickens? Most stores don't sell them, but if you shop at places that sell natural and organic foods, here are 4 things to look for in a chicken. First, is it air-chilled? Second, is it organic? Being organic is going to guarantee it's not fed any antibiotics or GMO feed. Third, is it a healthy breed? Fourth, how is it raised? Now let's see what you can actually get at the store. Here's an all-natural pasture-raised heirloom chicken from Trader Joe's. All-natural just means that no artificial ingredients like artificial colors or flavors were added to this chicken after processing. It doesn't mean it was raised naturally. Almost any chicken you buy at the store can be called all-natural, even if it was fed unnatural food and soaked in a chemical bath. But I see right here that this chicken is air-chilled, so it hasn't been dunked in a chemical bath. I don't see any organic label on this chicken. This means that this chicken is probably eating a diet of mostly GMO corn and soy that has been sprayed with cancer-causing chemicals like glyphosate. The Trader Joe's website says, unlike so many other chickens raised very quickly on processed meal and antibiotics, these heirloom chickens are slow growth. So this chicken is not a monstrous Cornish Rock Cross, but they don't reveal the breed or which farm it came from. Trader Joe's also says this chicken is pasture raised. You probably imagine chickens foraging all day long in green fields. But the USDA says, due to the number of variables involved in pasture-raised agricultural systems, the USDA has not developed a labeling policy for pasture-raised products. In 2025, there were reports all over the internet that the USDA finally developed a strict definition for pasture-raised. But like a lot of information you find on the internet, it simply isn't true. If you actually read what the USDA wrote, you will find that they simply updated their guidance documents to strongly encourage companies to use the pasture-raised claim to mean animals are actually raised on pasture for more than half of their life. But there isn't any requirement to do so, and no one who is already claiming their chicken is pasture-raised has to remove their claim. This pasture-raised chicken probably spent most of its life in a huge barn and simply had access to some outdoor area that might have had grass. And access doesn't mean they actually spend time outside, because chickens prefer to stay in a sheltered area, so unless farmers actually put their shelter directly over a pasture, chickens won't spend the majority of their life on a pasture. Beyond Trader Joe's, you can find brands like Mary's Chickens at stores like Whole Foods and Natural Grocers. But even this top-rated brand doesn't raise any chickens that check all of our boxes. Their antibiotic-free and organic chickens are the unnaturally fast-growing Cornish Rock Cross breed. Their heirloom and legacy chickens aren't organic, so their feed isn't organic, but fortunately they are both antibiotic-free. The heirloom chicken also has a non-GMO label, so this is one of the best chickens you can find. One of the best ways to know what you're actually eating is to understand what all these labels mean or at least which ones you should look for. Farm Forward has a useful label guide on their website that explains what most of these labels really mean. For example, it says the American Humane Certified label is widely considered to be humane washing because they certify factory farms that have all kinds of inhumane practices. The USDA doesn't have a definition for what is or isn't humane, so companies are allowed to make their own definition, and no checks from the government are required. Over on the side of this website, you can check boxes to see which labels meet your expectations. So if you want a chicken that has healthy genetics, the heritage and standard bred labels are what you need to look for. If you want birds raised on pasture, it will show you which labels have that. For example, Mary's Heirloom Chicken has this green Global Animal Partnership label, and you can click on this label to see what that actually means. Another option is to talk to local farmers and ask how they raise their chickens. You might actually find a sustainable farm near you that sells healthy chickens and more. If you want to learn more about finding healthy food in an unhealthy world, you might want to subscribe and watch this video next.